Hi everyone, this is Tabor Cope, and this is the sixth video I'm doing in a series about budgeting or personal finance. If you haven't seen my other videos, I recommend you go check those out. You can get to them by clicking on the links in the description below, or by going to my website, taborcope.com, where they're all laid out there on my budgeting page. Now in this video, I would like to go over the bottom section of the spreadsheet, but first I want to give a quick overview. So here is the template of my budgeting spreadsheet. And as you can see down here at the bottom, we have a page for each day or each month of the year. So this spreadsheet will be good for the entire year. And I do have everything link over from month to month. So there's formulas that take it over from month to month. And as I mentioned in my previous video, which is an introduction to this spreadsheet, then I mentioned that one of the easy ways of knowing where there's formulas and where there aren't formulas is the places where I have gray in the background is where there aren't any formulas, and so you're free to type in there and hit enter and it won't override any formulas that are put in there. So the top section of the spreadsheet are these three boxes along the top. The one that I've got named money flow, and then external deposits for bank accounts, and transfers between accounts. Those three boxes are what make up the top section. The bottom section is everything else down below. And that's what I want to hit over in this video. Now all these bottom boxes are pretty much the same, so we'll focus in on one and then we'll touch on the other ones briefly. So if we look at this first one here, the one I've named charity, then as I just mentioned, that very top cell of the box is the name that you want to give that category. And this category would be the same thing as like your envelope. I use an envelope method for budgeting, so these are all your different envelopes or different categories. You can name whatever you want, and in this first month of January, then you can type in the name and it'll carry it over throughout the rest of the year. So you'll notice if I go to February real quick, you'll see that it's now dark green in that charity box, and that's because there's a formula that brings over whatever name you typed in January. And so whatever you type in January, it'll carry it throughout the rest of the year. So going back to January, this top part of the category box in green, then to start out the year, you're going to put in the beginning balance that you've got for this particular category. And you can also put in a complement. The complement box is simply a way of being able to put in how much money you'd like to put into that category each month. One example might be if you're thinking of like housing, you know that maybe in your housing category you got to pay for rent, you got to pay for electricity, you got to pay for your water, maybe your internet, and your electricity and your water and internet might fluctuate slightly, but you kind of know how much you're going to need to put into that category each month to pay for all those expenses. And so instead of trying to add those numbers up every time in your mind and then go, oh yeah, I need to put in X amount of money into that category, once you've added up those numbers, you can put that into the complement box, and that'll be a reminder that that's how much money you want to put in there each month to be able to cover the expenses that are coming out of that category. So for example's sake, I can put in $100, and that's a placeholder again, just kind of letting me know I need to put $100 into this category every month to make sure I cover all the expenses that are going to be coming out of this category. Beginning month amount, again, is pretty much self-explanatory. If you're carrying over end of year balances from the previous year, you'd put them into there. If you're just starting out, then you can just come right down here to the transactions. So if you think of this category like an envelope, then you'd probably want to keep track of when you allocate money into that envelope or deposit money into that envelope and when you took money out of that envelope. So going back to maybe the food category, if this envelope were food, then you might want to say, okay, I got paid and I'm going to put $100 in there, and what date did I do that? And then when you go to the store, you might take some of that money out of there and buy some food at different stores. And you might want to keep track of when you went to the store, how much money you took out of that envelope on that day, and what you bought. And so that's what this transaction section is here in the category box. So we can put in a date and we can say we're just depositing money. You can put in any notes or comments you want for this transaction line. And let's say we deposited $100. Now you'll notice that once I put that in, then down here at the bottom there's a totals for this transaction section. So we've got $100 deposited in the category, no withdrawals, and you'll notice that my current / end of month box shows that I've got $100. That's how you deposit money into that category, into that envelope. Then let's say, for example's sake, you go to the store and you buy something. Let's say you go to Walmart, okay? Then let's say you spend $50.55 there. Now you notice that as soon as I input that number, it automatically pulls that money out of your category. Doesn't matter what account you take it out of, it's still acting like you've spent that money. And you can see that it's totaled up here down at the bottom. Now, in this from account box, you'll see this is the withdrawal section, so it's saying what's the amount that you withdrew and then from what account. And you'll click on this drop down arrow and you can choose which account it came out of. So if it came, maybe you used your debit card and it's coming from a checking account, you can select one of those. Or if it's a credit card that you use, you can select one of these. Now what shows up here in this drop down menu will change based on what you put into the money flow box. But since we haven't gone over that part yet, we'll come back to it. But just so you know that whatever nickname you give your checking account or your credit card, that name will show up here in this drop down menu. So let's say, for example, we took it out of checking one, and now we've put in a withdrawal. Let's say I come back a few days later, and I go this time to Walgreens, and I spend some more money. Let's say it's $25. Now you'll notice that as soon as I put the $25 in, automatically subtracts it out. So at any time I can come and look at this category box, or look at this envelope, if you will, and see exactly how much money I've got left in that category so I don't overspend it. And let's say this time I used my credit card to pay for that transaction. Now a couple weeks later, let's say I get paid, and so I'm going to put some more money back in there. And in this case, I'm going to put in $50. So once I put in $50, then you'll automatically see that my current end of month balance changes, and you can see the totals as far as deposits and withdrawals for that category. So that's kind of how this category box works. All the category boxes are down below here. So in this first row or first column of boxes, then you can see I've got one named Charity, one named Housing Necessities, and all these are, as we keep scrolling down, are just more and more category boxes. Now, to the right here in the next column of boxes, it's the same thing, there's just more transaction lines. And the reason why I did that is because some things you just have more transactions in the month and some things you don't. So, for example, this one, transportation, you might have lots of transactions in the month, and so you might need more lines where you're depositing, withdrawing, and keeping an account for that. Same thing over here to the third column of boxes. They're the same size boxes as those in the first column, as we can see. Just some more of those boxes. I don't remember how many I've got in the spreadsheet. I want to say there's about 25 of them. So you've got built into the spreadsheet about 25 different categories, 25 different envelopes that you can use. Now you can see in my template all the different categories that I currently have. There is no right or wrong to what categories you want to have. It doesn't have to be 25. It doesn't have to be more than that. It doesn't have to be less than that. And there's no right or wrong answer basically in what type of categories you have and how you name them. The main thing is helping you see your costs and how you can track your costs better. Because the whole idea of a budget, again, is to plan where you want to spend your money before you spend it. Some thoughts on what categories you might want to have. I talk about some categories that you'd want to definitely have in my fourth video with wise financial advice, saying that you definitely want to have like emergency savings. You might want to have a date night category. You might want to have a category for you and your spouse if you're in a relationship, so you have some of your own money. Some examples of where I have had my money in different categories, and as I've changed throughout the years, I've broken it out into different ways, kind of showing that there's no right or wrong answer in how you want to have your categories. Would be when I first started, I had my food and then my toiletries and beauty care all in one category, because I went, well, hey, when I go to Walmart or whatnot, I'm sometimes buying food, sometimes I'm buying toilet paper or deodorant or whatnot, and I don't want to have to separate the transactions. But as I found, it was a little bit hard to plan how much money I wanted to spend on food when my costs for beauty care, which would be, haircuts and things like that, and makeup for my wife, and deodorant and stuff like that, was mixed in with the food. And so I was like, you know what, I should really separate those two, and then I can better plan for those expenses. Another example is I used to have just one main housing category, but after I bought a house, I realized there was a lot of things that kind of went into maintaining a house. I had to buy light bulbs, I had to buy air filters, I had to purchase gas for the lawnmower, and I had to, buy paper towels and just a lot of things like that. And that was kind of messing up all the other transactions that I had that were like paying for the mortgage or the rent and paying for the electricity and the phone bill and internet and things like that. And so I decided to break it into different categories. So now I have a housing necessities category, which is kind of the rent, electricity, water, trash, internet, and those type of transactions. And then I have a housing maintenance budget, which is the light bulbs, the air filters, the paper towels, the odds and ends that you have to buy to keep the house up and running. And I liked breaking those costs apart so that way I could better budget and plan for housing maintenance items and for the housing necessity type items. So that's kind of one example where I had things together and then I decided to break them apart so that I could better plan for my expenditures in the future. So there's, again, no right or wrong way to how you want to break things up. You can obviously see in the template some of the categories that I use, and that could be a good starting place for you. And as you start using this spreadsheet over the years, you'll start to probably figure out what categories you like best and how it makes sense to you. That is pretty much it for the bottom section of the spreadsheet. The next video, then we're going to go into the top section, and we'll break into the money flow box, the external deposits for bank account box, and the transfer between accounts. If you've got any questions, please let me know in the comment section below, or go to my website, taborcope.com. There's a contact me page there, and you can send me an email right from there, and I will reply back and help you. Alrighty? Thanks. We'll see you in the next video.